This is a big deal story. Senator Blumenthal from Connecticut, he's a Democrat, and he's part of the committee that's looking into what may have gone down there in Butler County, Pennsylvania, during that horrific assassination attempt on the former president of the United States. And I'm a little disturbed by what I heard from him. Not surprised, but I am surprised in that this is coming from a Democrat. I appreciate that it's coming from a Democrat, because I think people anticipate and expect Republicans to say this kind of thing. But in this case, this is a Northeastern Democrat saying, whoa, we got some real problems here, real problems. And we're coming out with a report, and you're going to be stunned as an American when you hear just exactly how bad this all is. Let's take a listen. Senator Richard Blumenthal.
I think the American people are going to be shocked, astonished, and appalled by what we will report to them about the failures by the Secret Service in this assassination attempt on the former president. But I think they also ought to be appalled and astonished by the failure of the Department of Homeland Security to be more forthcoming, to be as candid and frank as it should be to them in terms of providing information. And we are going to absolutely insist on the truth and the whole truth in documents and testimony as members of the United States Senate, but also as citizens.
What did you learn new today when you said they're going to be appalled? What specifically?
I'm not going to go into what we have learned in specifics. I'm giving you my reaction, and we will have a report very, very soon that I think will absolutely shock the American people, or it should, about the lapses and lags in the protection that was afforded that day and the breakdown in communication and failure in responsibility.
Is that report coming today or tomorrow?
I'm sorry?
Is that report coming out tonight or tomorrow?
No.
So it's imminent. It's not here this week, and there are real concerns, as there should be. So that leaves me here with a lot of questions. I am grateful that they are being honest about all this. I wonder if this report will be released before the election. I hope it's released before the election. I think there will be some concern about doing so from the Kamala Harris camp, right? Because if it doesn't make the Department of Homeland Security look very good, if it doesn't make the Secret Service look very good, then you're going to have problems. Don't forget, the woman who was originally in charge of the Secret Service had been put there by Dr. Jill Biden. And the thinking was, oh, isn't this great? We have a woman who's head of Secret Service. And there was so much effectively DEI sort of influence going on there that I suspect they kind of lost track of, like, is everybody able to do their job? Is everyone doing the job? How many female Navy SEALs do you have? 0. And it's not because there aren't talented women. It's because there are certain physical demands in that job. And thus, they can't pass the exams in order to be a Navy SEAL. And so there was a lot of sort of, oh, isn't this great? We have so many women. We've increased the ranks of women in the Secret Service. And sure, that's great. That's great. But you need to make sure, again, you're playing everyone to the best position. You need to make sure that everyone can do the job and that you're not just, giving out tokens, so to speak. And that's a central theme that's kind of going on in this election anyway, because a lot of people feel like, okay, Kamala Harris didn't really deserve to be vice president. And she certainly doesn't deserve to be top of the ticket for the Democrat Party. So that complicates it all. And so consequently, I think that there's going to be a lot of pressure. I would anticipate that they will say, hey, we got to hold off on this. Hold off. And Americans will still continue to have these questions. But I credit Blumenthal. I mean, that is quite a statement, I think, from him. We don't understand why it is, for example, that Donald Trump didn't have enough people there. He had an outside rally. Was that because of politics? I think so. I think it absolutely was because of politics. I think they thought, well, maybe if we don't give him the necessary security, maybe we can dissuade him from actually doing these things. So that's number one. I mean, they had a zillion Secret Service people over at the dinner that Dr. Jill Biden was attending, yet they couldn't put anybody on this detail. So that's one issue. And then, of course, we don't understand why when the local law enforcement, they're going back and forth on their walkie-talkies saying, hey, there's a guy on the roof. I mean, they recognized him even earlier, right? They knew that there was a suspicious guy there. Why that wasn't ever communicated to Secret Service, and why did it take so long as this guy actually firing? He had to fire. And thank God, right? Thank God. And I say this as an American, not as somebody who likes Trump's policies better than Kamala Harris's or Joe Biden's. I say this as an American. This would have been bad for everyone. Everyone. Can you imagine the division that would have been cultivated as a result of that if they actually had gotten him? I mean, the fact that they didn't take this kid out beforehand is really perplexing. So these are just some of the obvious questions, right, on the surface. And it sounds like Blumenthal's really disturbed by what went down. And I think that, we're going to have a lot of questions about all of this. I want to turn to the poll again, new poll coming out, and you can see this insider advantage is showing that in Michigan, Donald Trump is up by a point over Kamala Harris. When you look at Nate Silver's prediction model, you continue to see that Donald Trump is up better than 60%, 61.6% chance of Donald Trump winning compared with Kamala Harris. Now that's pretty remarkable. I mean, you've got Donald Trump still leading in the polls, with one just out of Michigan showing him up a point, with Nate Silver's prediction model still having him advanced over Kamala Harris. And the mainstream media doesn't understand this. They really just fundamentally don't get why this is happening. They're horrified. They're like, wait a second, we've been telling you, he's bad, he's bad, he's bad. And yet, people, you're still willing to go with him? Part of the reason, right, is because they had 4 years with Donald Trump. And they had a heck of a lot more of a successful economy. They had far less inflation. They had real wages. I'm talking wages adjusted for inflation that were growing the most they'd grown in 50 years. So there's a lot of reasons for people to kind of feel like things were better, even though the media tells them you shouldn't think that way.